Hey babes, I hope you're doing well. I've been meaning to do a video for a while on types of distorted thinking because everyone can experience distorted thinking, mental illness or not. They're common cognitive distortions, which is kind of like a type of thinking pattern. CBT and DBT therapy can help sort this out. Basically, it's like a thinking error. They're irrational thoughts. I think being aware of this way of thinking will help us stop ourselves in our thought tracks and be like, hold on a minute, this isn't the most logical thing. So yeah, basically it happens automatically without you realising it. They're exaggerated, they're convincing, they're not accurate reflections of reality, although they can feel it because they're so convincing. It's something everyone does, but they are more prevalent within mental illness. They help you feel more hopeless and worthless than you actually are. So number one is filtering. Basically, this is taking the negatives of a situation and magnifying them and ignoring the positives. Also known as overgeneralizing. Basically, it's having a negative bias and you notice all the negatives but fail to notice the positives, and this is something I think we all do. Overgeneralize the situation and make yourself feel shit. And yeah, so that's filtering. Number two is a trait of BPD, which is polarized thinking. In other words, black and white thinking, or even tumultuous thinking. We have trouble finding the middle ground in a situation. We have trouble seeing the grey, as a lot of us say. So we're quite all or nothing people. Our opinion on things changes. Splitting is kind of another word for black and whiteness, I think. We're either all good or all bad. So if we mess up, we'll be like, oh, I'm a terrible person. Black and white thinking, I feel like I could think of loads of examples, but none of them are coming to me right now. But yeah, it's a very classic BPD trait, but I know it, like, everyone kind of does this once in a while. So we're just all or nothing. We'll throw ourselves into like a project or something, and then we realise we're not as good as we thought as we were going to be in it, and we'll completely drop it. We either love or hate something, and in my recovery I've obviously realised that everything's not black and white. Number three is jumping to conclusions, which kind of has, I think, three parts to it. Jumping to conclusion leads us to mind reading. It's where you think someone's going to react in a particular way, or you believe someone's going to do things that they aren't. And also you can believe they're thinking about you in a bitchy way. You can believe people are out to get you. You can believe people are talking about you or thinking about you in a negative way, and it can kind of happen all the time. But you need to realise, are you a fortune teller? Don't think so. So you can't just assume, like people are always thinking about you in a negative way. But yeah, fortune telling is the next one, which is basically you predict events will unfold in a particular way to try and avoid something difficult. This one kind of called me out. Sometimes socializing is difficult for someone with BPD. We don't often follow through with plans, which is why a lot of us find it easier to isolate. But basically we predict or imagine that something's going to go wrong or something, and then it will kind of scare us out of it, which is fortune telling. So yeah, that's another cognitive distortion. Magical thinking is the third type of jumping to conclusion, but I'll go into that soon. Number four is catastrophizing, which again ties into assuming the worst and jumping to conclusions. We assume the absolute worst will happen with catastrophizing. It's very common with BPD. So today I thought my dog got run over just because I heard her barking in the front of the house. But in reality, it was just my mum taking my dog for a walk. But because she was like, Leela, calm down or whatever, it led me to believe she was off the lead and running into the road, and I just thought she died, and I was frantically calling my mum, is she alive? This is what my brain led itself to believe. The emotion can be running so high, but you need to check that it fits the facts of the situation. I was running around the house trying to find her, but in reality she was safe on the lead on a dog walk. I think this also ties in with paranoia, but that is catastrophizing, just assuming the worst. And when you assume the worst constantly, nothing can shock or surprise you. So you seem unbothered by things, but it's because we are so bothered by every small thing. So when something big actually happens, it feels like we've been there before because of the catastrophizing. And this, I think, just adds a lot of unnecessary stress into our lives. So you can't just assume the worst always, you know? Number 5 is personalization, which is basically thinking everything others say or do is against you. So you interpret things, whatever context, you think everything applies to you, and that sounds very narcissistic. It's a paranoia thing. We sometimes just think people are out to get us, which just ties into mind reading. We're just assuming, which ties into assuming the worst, catastrophizing. But yeah, other symptoms of over-personalization or just personalization is we compare ourselves to other people a lot. Maybe we're a perfectionist, and each conversation and each look, we take it as value to our worth and us as a whole, you know? Like, tone of voice can lead us to be spiraling. They think this about me, they think that about me, when in reality it's not about you. I think a lot of people do have main character syndrome, where we forget people have their own lives. People aren't always thinking about you negatively. Not everything's about you, and not in a way to say like you're being selfish, because you're not being selfish. It's a cognitive distortion, which means it's kind of out of our control, but it doesn't mean we can't work on it. We have to work on this. So over personalization is when we take things too personally, when it's not about us. Any glance can trigger us, so we just need to realize, calm down. And that's coming from a person with BPD, so I'm not invalidating anyone. I know that paranoia, and I literally live it every day, so I'm not judging. Like, that's me, I can relate. Number 6 is blaming/denying. So you blame others for your problems or mistakes, or in my case, I blame myself when things aren't even my fault. So with the blaming/denying, for some people, of course, it's blaming others, and I've met people who do this, and it's not fair. But also, it's not fair on yourself to constantly blame yourself for a situation that doesn't even apply to you. And this kind of relates to personalization. They kind of all tie in together in a nice way, but the blaming yourself isn't fair. The blaming others isn't fair. You need to own up to your mistakes, and you can't assume that everything's your fault either, you know? So whatever one you struggle with, you need to work on, because it's not fair on that person or on you. I relate to the self-blame a lot, which kind of totally ties in with quiet BPD. For every problem that you run into your life, not every single problem is your fault. Number 7 is labeling. For example, you might label yourself negatively. I made a mistake, therefore I'm a failure. Labeling can also apply to labeling other people, which is something everyone does. Judging doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing. For example, you got the judges on the X Factor, but sometimes they say nice things and not always mean. But labeling someone as all bad, or they're an idiot, or they're an evil person is never a good thing, because not everything in this world is black and white. Labeling everything isn't always healthy. I think labels can help people identify themselves, especially if they have like not a very stable sense of self, but especially like negative labels, like we should probably stop that. But yeah, with labeling, most times it comes with labeling ourselves negatively, and you deserve better. You know, you're much more than that. Number 8 is magical thinking, which is basically ties in with jumping to conclusions, fortune telling. You think everything will be better when, insert whatever you want. So, for example, in the past, I used to think everything would be better when I would listen to my disorder and eat a lot less. So, for example, everything will be better when I am thinner, I am richer, I get a new job, etc. So this is called magical thinking. It doesn't work. Life does not work like that. You can't just magically be happy all of a sudden once you reach a goal of yours. It will never be enough. It will never be enough. Like, you keep wanting to be richer, it will never be enough. You'll keep wanting to be thinner, which, you know, can literally kill you. That is so unhealthy. Whatever goal you're working towards, it can't magically make you happy. And so that is magical thinking. And most people do this, like literally everyone does this. It's so bad. Okay, so number 9 is emotional reasoning. So You think that your feelings are reality, and this is the most BPD thing I've ever heard of, I can't lie. So, for example, I feel guilty for saying no, so I must have been wrong to set that boundary. I relate to this so much. First of all, you're not wrong for saying no and setting a boundary. Boundaries are so important. Our emotions don't always fit the facts of the situation or the reality of the situation. We are not our emotions. Emotions are important, but when we let them take us away, we can like kind of go into the rabbit hole. So you need to use your wise mind. And in DBT, you learn, you know, you've got emotional mind, you've got rational mind, and you've got wise mind in the middle. And you need to be rational, you need to check the facts of a situation, but you can't be 100% rational with no emotion, because then you'll be a robot. And we're humans, we have emotions, so we need to find the middle, which is wise mind. Just because you feel guilty doesn't mean you should feel guilty. And the last one, number 10, is overgeneralizing. So with overgeneralizing, an example of that could be nothing ever good happens, everything's always shit. Even if your life really is shit, like whatever issue you're going through, it can literally be the worst situation ever. Even though you truly, truly believe that everything's always shit and nothing ever goes your way, you have to find a few things to be grateful for, like water. If you have a roof over your head, you have a nice bed, if you have a pet that you love or a best friend, being grateful for anything, like a little plushie. Being grateful for the smallest things, like a cup of tea, just proves that you shouldn't overgeneralize and not everything's shit, because even though shit can happen, shit can go down and you feel like your life is out of control and you're crumbling, there's always something to be grateful for, and there's always at least one thing good in your life. We all need to stop overgeneralizing, because I do this. I can be dramatic and be like, ugh, everything sucks. The small things can be so beautiful. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a beautiful Halloween. It's the most magical time of the year. Thank you for watching.